from pulling a team out of the relegation to leading them their first league title after 100 years. In a span of just 18 months, Xabi Alonso has broke German football.
And whatever happens now will go down in German football history.
From being a tiki-taka team in first half to being a counter-attacking side in another. Instead of any single style, Xabi's tactics keeps on changing based on different teams, which not only confuses the oppositions, but also makes them almost impossible to break through.
Boniface has taken that superbly.
And using this, they finally ended Bayern's 11 years of league dominance and became the first team in German history that won the league without losing a single match. So what is this Xabi's unpredictable tactics I am talking about, and how it actually broke football's rigid philosophies? Let's discuss in this video. Since taking charge at Leverkusen, Xabi has consistently started with his usual 3-2-4-1 formation on paper. But rather than a rigid structure, it keeps on changing its shape multiple times throughout the match, which makes them almost unpredictable to play against. However, when they start their build-up, then they form in a fixed setup, where they played with an asymmetric 4-2-4 shape, where the right-back Frimpong stays up front as a right winger, while the back three spreads wide to form a back four. The reason for this was as most German clubs are pressing-oriented, they makes it difficult for the team to build up short. So Xabi applies a formula called circular rotations, in which when the opposition are pressing up the center backs, they pass it to the left back, who deliberately carries the ball and drift inwards towards the pivot. And simultaneously, the right pivot shifts on the right and takes on the right flank position. And due to this inward movement, it narrows down the front markers, which frees up the wide space for the right pivot, who has a clear path to break through the first line of pressure. But if the opposition adopts a low block, then this strategy may become ineffective. So to counter this, Alonso uses a technique which is the combination of De Zerbi's Brighton and Guardiola's Barcelona. And it's also one of the quickest way to break any opposition's pressings. So for example, when the center back passes the ball to one of the pivot, that pivot quickly returns the pass to him. This creates a pressing trigger for the markers to be closer with the two, which indirectly leaves out space for the second pivot to receive the actual pass. This then attracts additional markers who are behind him, and due to this it creates an open space between the lines where one of the forward drops deeper and receives the pass as a third man, which then draws one of the center back and frees up the striker as the fourth man. So they cleverly use the opposition press as a weapon to break them and start a counterattack even without losing the ball. However, if the opposition adopts a low press strategy and rather than pressing with more numbers, they use 1v1s against the ball carrier, then this strategy may also get flawed. So to address this, Xabi intentionally overloads one presser with two. To explain this, when the center back is looking for a pass to one of the pivot, Palacios, who is close to Xhaka, deliberately jumps right in with Xhaka. This confuses Xhaka's marker, who is being ready for a 1v1. And once the ball is passed to Xhaka, Palacios, who is unmarked, becomes the third man who advances with the ball. So like this, they consistently creates 2v1s against the low-pressing teams and eventually breaks down their defense.
Into the first half's last 5 minutes, here's Granit Xhaka.
However, once they get out of the first build-up stage and enter into the second one, Xabi uses a weird combination of Pep's positional play and Deniz's relationalism. So for instance, after the first phase, both the pivot moves vertically to each other, and also their asymmetrical approach makes Leverkusen to mostly play on the right side. So this triggers the narrow right forward to shift towards that side as well, creating a 6-man box structure on one side of the pitch. And at the same time, Grimaldo, the left back, drifts wide, imitating his partner's winger role. This puts the opposition in a terrible situation. If they send more numbers to cover this 6-man box, then Bayer can easily switch the play on the left towards Grimaldo, who only has one player to defend them. And if they spread to cover the opposite players, then it could create a 6v5 superiority on the other side, where they can easily progress the ball through their one-touch passes and have 5 or 6 players already in the advanced position. So like this, he uses two extreme style of play into one, with Deniz's relationism using one side overload and by Pep's positional play using the box. However, once they actually enters into the attacking phase, they switch from a 4-2-4 into a 3-2-5 structure, where Grimaldo finally advances to act like his opposite partner. But rather than actually playing with this structure, it's generally used to trick the opposition markers. Well, to explain this, when they use a 3-2-5 shape, opposition often mark them in a 5-4-1 setup. This makes it difficult for Bayer to break their low block with short passes and often force them to go long. So to solve this, one of the inverted forward from the front 5 drops deeper and acts as a roaming number 10, and at the same time, he gives both his wide center backs freedom to carry the ball forward while partnering Palacios with the roaming player. This makes the opposition midfield to shift their focus on the incoming center backs, which then creates an open space between their second and third line of defense. And as soon as they receive the ball, these players quickly join the front 4 and exploit the back line. And using this once they actually get near the box, these front 5 then do the remaining work, where they shifts an entire oppositions into one side. To achieve this, they often pass the ball wide to the far side player, while the player inside the half space makes a deliberate wide run towards the flanks and draws his marker as well. This movement then frees up the striker without a man, leading the back line to spread towards him, and when the ball is then passed to the half-space player, it effectively draws most of the opposition to first half of the pitch, which then leaves the far right and right half-space player with just one marker. So a quick cross towards them quickly exposes the opposition's defense and creates a prime scoring opportunity for Bayer. However, out of all these strategies, Xabi's tactic truly emerges when they are out of possession. So without the ball, they press in a 5-2-3 setup, and the main objective of Xabi was to always protect the central channels, which he believes to be the heart of any structure. So he created an interesting star-like pattern to address this. For example, when the opposition build up from back, Alonso positions his front 3 to be narrow, and both of his pivot just behind them, looking like a compact star shape. This creates a numerical superiority at the center, with the box of 4 behind the striker. And even if the opposition attempts to play through center, Alonso encourages his wide center backs to step up as well, making it almost impossible to advance centrally. This forces the oppositions to go wide, and as soon as they play wide, Alonso's wing back quickly jump onto them, creating a one-side overload, where the star players covers the center options, while the far-sided center back tracks the wide options. This eventually makes the opposition to either retreat and switch the play, or trust their aerial abilities. But if the opposition somehow manages to break this pressing pattern, then Bayer quickly transitions into a 5-4-1 shape where the inverted forwards becomes the wide midfielders, and due to the back 3 and double pivot shielding the central areas, it helps them to keep the opposition's attack wide, with the wingbacks and wide mids ensuring to protect the flanks. However, when they actually win the ball back using this, rather than quickly launching a counter-attack, Alonso let the oppositions press them even more, in which he invite the opposition to counter-press and let them commit more numbers forward. And once the opposition are fully into their counter-press, Bayer quickly execute a long ball towards their forwards who are being left isolated. This makes them the most dangerous counter-attacking side, as they use the opposition's psychology to their advantage, instead of simply going with their instinct. But these strategies won't be possible without the roles of Xabi's players. So looking at their player roles, rather than a traditional back 3, they form a back 4 for their build-up, with the right center-back covering the space of Frimpong, who is often forward, while the left back stays deep and takes the role of a wing-back. Rather than a traditional wingback, Grimaldo is the most versatile player in the squad, who can operate as a winger during attacks, invert as a pivot during build-up, and even act as a third number 10. However, he still fulfills his defensive duties as a full-back, unlike Frimpong, who actually been assigned a right winger role. Frimpong's positioning is even proactive than Trent, as you might see him as a right winger, a number 10, or even a striker at various occasions. And due to his wide positionings, he also serves as press releaser for the central players. And speaking about the pivots, Palacios is a box-to-box mid, as he drops deep to partner with Xhaka in the 4+2 build-up and then advances into spaces between the lines during attacks, while Xhaka is a deep-lying playmaker, who is the main man who executes Xabi's counter-attacking technique. Moving up to both the forwards, Hoffman plays as a narrow attacking mid. This gives more space for Frimpong to take on the right wing, while he mostly controls the right half space. But on the other hand, Wirtz is given a more wider role. When Grimaldo stays back to form a back 4, Wirtz takes the left wing to maintain the width. He also serves as a key playmaker after Grimaldo, who drops between the lines and connect the midfield with the attack. However, in order to create space for Wirtz between the lines, Xabi assigns both his center back as ball players. This encouraged them to carry the ball forward and draw more markers higher in order to open gaps between the lines. Finally, up front, Boniface is utilized as a pressing forward. Due to his excellent speed and strength, he plays a massive role for pressing the opposition right from their build-up and also counter-pressing them right after losing the ball. However, these players won't work together without a proper team instruction set by Xabi. So they are a possession-based team that also create chances through their aggressive nature. So their style is the blend of control and attacking mindset. And at defense, in order to apply their pressing pattern, they play with a high line and apply pressure across the opposition's half. While in the final third, they're excellent at working the ball into box using close connections and driving the ball at defense to create spaces between the lines or flanks. And due to the close proximity of players, Xabi always favored short passes. So if I ask you to define Xabi's style of play, then you would say it's a possession-based team but excels in counterattacks. It's a team that has a structure but also plays without a structure. A team that uses the opposition counter-press as a weapon to expose them, while also employing the same method as its own weapon to regain possession. So overall, Xabi Alonso has truly revolutionized football by not letting a single philosophy define him. Instead, he defined his own philosophy. And inspired by Xabi, many managers have become versatile and defined their own style. Yet one manager who went even further with this was Thiago Motta, a man who came up with a weird 2-7-2 formation that gained significant popularity in recent years, in which his center-backs acts as the midfielder and his keeper as a center-back. And using this, he led Bologna to the Champions League for the first time in their history. So what exactly is this 2-7-2 system and why these players have weird roles in it? Let's find out by clicking this video, so hope to see you there.